Hey there, and welcome. Have you ever been to a new place and felt a little lost about the rules? Well, that's exactly what we're tackling today, but in French. We're going to learn how to talk about what's allowed, what's required, and what's totally forbidden. This will give you all the key phrases you need to navigate any situation with confidence. So let's jump right in.
Okay, let's kick things off with a quick question for you. Connaissez-vous ces expressions? Do you happen to know these expressions? Just take a look at the words and the symbols here for a second. Do any of them ring a bell? And hey, it's totally fine if they don't, because by the end of our time together, you're going to know all of them.
First up, we have a really direct and important one. C'est interdit. Let's say that nice and slow. C'est interdit. This means it's forbidden. Think of those signs you see in museums or official buildings. When you see or hear this phrase, it means something is strictly off limits, no exceptions. Now here's a slightly softer but still super common phrase. Ce n'est pas permis. Let's try it again. Ce n'est pas permis. This translates to it's not allowed or it's not permitted. It's a really clear and, often a more polite way to explain a rule. Okay, let's look at the positive side of things. C'est possible. This one's super simple and really useful. It means, you guessed it, it's possible. This is what you'll hear when something is totally allowed or when something can be done. And on the complete opposite end, we have another really strong phrase. C'est obligatoire. Let's give that a try. C'est obligatoire. This means it's mandatory or it's required. This is for those things you absolutely have to do, like wearing a seatbelt in a car. So here's our game plan. First, we'll see these rules in a real-life context. Then, we're going to dive into two super important verbs, pouvoir, which means can, and devoir, which means must. After that, we'll do some practice together, and finally, it'll be your turn to shine. All right, let's get right into our first section. I want you to imagine you're visiting a new community center, and someone is walking you through how everything works. It's pretty much the perfect setting to see all these new rules in action. Now, if we want to move beyond just those simple phrases and actually start building our own sentences, we need a key tool. And to talk about what's possible or what's permitted, that tool is the verb pouvoir. So, pouvoir translates to be able to, or simply can. You'll find yourself using it all the time, either to talk about something you're physically able to do, or to politely ask for permission to do something. Okay, let's see how this verb changes based on who's talking. This is called conjugation. I'll go slowly, so please try to repeat each one after me. Ready? Je peux. Tu peux. Il, elle, on peut. Nous pouvons. Vous pouvez. And finally, ils, elles peuvent. Fantastic. And here's a perfect example of how you'd use this in a real sentence. Elle ne peut pas fumer ici. She cannot smoke here. See how we put ne pas around the verb peut to make it negative? This is basically the grammatical way of saying what we learned earlier with c'est interdit. So we've got permission down. Now what about the other side of the coin? Obligation. For this, we absolutely need to know the verb devoir. Devoir means to have to or must. It's the verb you reach for when something isn't just possible, it's actually required. This is directly connected to that phrase we learned right at the beginning, c'est obligatoire. Let's look at the conjugation for devoir. Again, I'll take it slow, so just repeat after me. Je dois, tu dois, il, elle, on doit, nous devons, vous devez, and ils, elles doivent. You're doing great. Really, getting these sounds right is a huge step forward. All right, so theory is one thing, but practice. That's where the magic really happens. Let's head back to our community center scenario and actually put pouvoir and devoir to work. To build our practice sentences, we're going to need a few action words, what we call infinitives. First on our list is fumer, which means to smoke. Next up, a very common one you'll use a lot, manger, which means to eat. And for our last one, let's use lire, which, as you might guess, means to read. Now for small but really important detail. When you're talking about your something, the word you use actually changes if you're talking about one thing or many things. For just one thing, like your book, we say ton livre. But for multiple things, like your books, it becomes tes livres. Listen really closely to that subtle difference. Ton, te.
Nailing this little detail, it'll make you sound so much more natural when you speak. All right, you ready for a little challenge? Let's see what you've picked up so far. I'm going to read 4 short sentences out loud that describe different rules. Your job is to listen carefully and decide if the situation is mandatory, allowed, or forbidden. You got this. Here we go. Sentence A. Les salles de classe sont fermées après 18 heures. Okay, so the classrooms are closed after 6 p.m. That means being there is interdit. It's forbidden. Next, sentence B. Le bureau du registraire est ouvert du lundi au jeudi. The registrar's office is open from Monday to Thursday. So using it on those days is permis, allowed. Sentence C. Le cellulaire n'est pas permis dans la bibliothèque. The cell phone is not allowed in the library. This one's pretty clear. It's interdit, forbidden. And finally, sentence D. S'il vous plaît, gardez les lieux propres en tout temps. Please keep the premises clean at all times. This is a requirement, right? So it's obligatoire, mandatory. So, how did you do? Wow, we have covered a lot of ground today, from those key phrases all the way to essential verbs like pouvoir and devoir. We're at our final section, and it's just about your turn to put all this into practice. But first, let's do a super quick recap. So here are the main things to remember. First, pouvoir is for permission, which you can do. Devoir is for obligation, which you must do. Don't forget to pay close attention to the difference between temps for a single item and tes for multiple items. And of course, the most important rule of all for learning any language, practice makes perfect. And that brings us to our final thought for today. I'm going to leave you with this question. Que devez-vous faire aujourd'hui? What is something that you must do today? Try to answer that for yourself, in French of course, using the verb devoir. It's the perfect way to take what you've learned and make it your own. Thanks so much for joining me, and happy practicing.